Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is late, I promise you, a late live stream, and here we are. We're going to do the 2022-2023 season preview. Of course, the Premier League season has already started actually. It began tonight with Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. Arsenal picking up the 3 points at Selhurst Park with a 2-0 win over Crystal Palace to start their season off with a win. Obviously unfortunate for Crystal Palace, picking up a loss in their opening game, but it was quite an entertaining game of football, end to end at times. Arsenal started like a house on fire and were absolutely excellent for the opening 15-20 minutes, and then Crystal Palace sort of got back into the game a little bit more, started to soak up the pressure a little bit better, created a couple of chances for themselves, but unfortunately for them couldn't put any of them away, and Arsenal ended up getting a late goal towards the end of the game to solidify their win. But for Everton, it starts tomorrow. 5:30 kickoff at Goodison Park against Chelsea. Really, really difficult game. We sat down earlier on this afternoon and spoke about that game, spoke about how difficult of a game it is. Despite the fact it's against the Chelsea team that are in a little bit of a strange position, I would say, at the moment, given a change of ownership and given a lot of changes being made at the football club, both at the top of the football club and on the pitch, of course, with a couple of new signings that they've managed to make, Cucurella being the latest addition in their side. It still remains an extremely difficult game. You know, Chelsea have still got a whole host of top quality players, and players that can certainly cause Everton issues tomorrow if we're not on our absolute A game. But we spoke about that game individually earlier on today, so I thought we'd sit down and just talk about the season as a whole. We do this every year before the Premier League season. We sit down and do sort of a season preview. What we expect from the season, what we hope from the season. I know Frank Lampard had his pre-game press conference yesterday ahead of the Chelsea game, and he was asked about aims for the Premier League season. He was asked about where Everton want to be, what Everton want to achieve, and I think he answered it quite sensibly, really, in effectively saying that there is no aim for the season at this point, and it would be silly for us to have an aim for the season at this point. The simple aim is to win on Saturday, and then it's to win the Saturday after, and then it's to win the week after, and the week after, and the week after. And I think that's where we have to sort of sit with this season as Evertonians, because it's the first season in a long time where we're coming into it with very little expectation. I feel, typically we come into the Premier League season, and I've done 2 or 3 of these season previews now ever since starting the channel, and I always sit here and say, I expect us to be challenging for Europe. I expect us to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, fighting for those European positions. I think I've even done season previews where I've sat here and said I expect us to be finishing in Europe. I remember doing the season preview before Carlo Ancelotti's first full season and saying I expect us to be in, the Europa League come the end of that season, because we'd just signed James Rodriguez, we had Abdoulaye Doucouré, we had Alan in there, and there was massive expectation for Everton to go on and do something big and achieve European football. Obviously we didn't. We ended up falling off quite heavily towards the back end of that season, and then last season it was a little bit like, well, okay, we've got a good foundation there. We still had James Rodriguez at that point, Luca Dean, Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit. Let's hope we can push for Europe this season, even though at that point we had a manager that none of us really wanted or ever really felt would suit Everton. Whereas now we're almost going into this Premier League season, and as sad as it sounds, and as sickening as it sounds, and as much as I don't like it, we're almost looking at sort of mid-table and thinking, do you know what? If you were to sit here now and guarantee us a position between 10th and 15th, I think most Evertonians would take it at the moment, given how bad we were last season and how close we were to being relegated. Don't get me wrong, there'll still be a lot of Evertonians that are sitting there saying, no, I want us to challenge for Europe, and I think we will challenge for Europe. But I think if we put our realistic heads on, realistically this season, I think we're all expecting a sort of mid-table finish at best. I don't think Everton will be in a relegation battle this season. I don't, and that might just be blind naivety. That just might be me being biased because, I'm an Evertonian and I love the football club, and obviously I sat here last season and I never would have expected us to have been where we've just been. But I don't think we will be. I think there's plenty of teams that will struggle this season, and I just don't feel like Everton will be one of those teams. I think you're looking at your Brentford, your Leeds, as the three that have come up. I think will struggle. Maybe even Southampton will struggle. I just don't think we'll be one of those teams. I think we've made some smart acquisitions so far. Sorry, not accusations, acquisitions so far. And obviously Dwight McNeil, James Tarkowski, and Ruben Vinagre. And at the time of this video, we haven't officially announced the signings of Idrissa Gana Gueye or obviously Onana. However, those two look like they are imminent, as well as Connor Codew's being rumoured. A couple of other players are being rumoured forwards and stuff. So I actually think we'll be okay this season. Do we think we'll challenge for Europe, or we'll finish, in one of those challenging positions? Not necessarily. And it's sad because I'm sitting here now saying mid-table would probably be acceptable now. Whereas 2-3 years ago, if you'd have said to me, Cam, before the Premier League season, you're going to expect Everton to finish mid-table, I wouldn't be happy with that. But everything gets put into perspective, and that's why this is a much more difficult video to do going into this season than it has been before, because of how bad last season was. There is very, very minimal expectation, and as I said, we usually sitting here talking about European football or, challenging for Europe, etc., etc. Whereas now we're almost looking at it thinking, well, if we can be safe and be safe comfortably, then that's probably where or whereabout we should be come the end of the season. As long as we're not scrapping around fighting relegation in February, March, May time, then it's probably been a good progressive season for Frank Lampard and the team. Now, obviously, that isn't the type of mentality the players and the manager should have going into this season, because it's a fresh start, as it is with every single team. And the aim should be to finish as high as possible, and that's what I mean. I think Frank Lampard's answer in his press conference was very, very, very sensible. Not coming out and saying we want to challenge for the European positions, or we want to finish in the top half, or we want to be comfortable. Just coming out and saying, listen, I'm not going to sit here and talk about goals for the season. I'm going to sit here and say, let's just take every game one game at a time. And I also think that's the right mentality to have for any team in the Premier League. I remember when Leicester won the league. There was a constant throughout that season with every one of their player interviews, every manager interview that Claudio Ranieri did. Every single interview, they were asked about their goals or their excitement or their aspirations, and every single time, whoever it was being interviewed said, "Well, we're just going to take it game by game. We'll see. Our main focus is next week, and then the focus after that is the week after." Them lot across the park, when they done the league, they had a very similar thing. It's all right for teams like Manchester City and Chelsea, who were notorious winners, to say, oh yeah, our goal for this season is to win the league. But I think for most teams, having a goal of just taking it game by game, and not really looking too far into the future, I think is a sensible approach, and I think that's the approach that Frank Lampard has got at the moment. I mean, Toffee TV says Suey in the chat. I assume that is Ned, who, for those asking whether he's working or doing a gig, he's not. He's at a wedding, and I would be massively disappointed if he wasn't absolutely bladdered at this point. So if it is you, Matty, I hope that you're absolutely bladdered, because you've been at a wedding for about the last 15 hours, mate, and if you're not bevy, then what are you doing? But I thought that was very, very interesting of Frank in terms of, not giving much away and not really talking about goals and aims for the season. And it's right, because ultimately it's PED, apparently. Toffee TV says it's PED. There you go. You're not at a wedding, so you get off with it. What's happening though, mate? But yeah, as I said, I think it's sensible that we approach this season in that way, so there's no real unnecessary pressure on it. I don't think there's any Evertonian going into this season expecting us to finish in a European position or even challenge for the European position, but there's also a lot of Evertonians expecting us to to avoid where we were at the back end of last season, which was obviously fighting relegation, which isn't where we want to be, and certainly wasn't where we wanted to be. So it is difficult. It's difficult looking at the season ahead and trying to picture where we will be come the end of it. I suppose we can look at the transfer window and address the improvements that Everton have made. I think we've improved our central defence in bringing in James Tarkowski, who is ultimately arguably our best centre-half in terms of defensive ability. I know Yerry Mina is there, and maybe Yerry Mina just tips him in regards to how good of a defender he is, but James Tarkowski is very, very certainly a close second, and for me is much better than any other centre-back we've got at the football club, obviously barring Yerry Mina. He's coming on a free transfer. We've brought Dwight McNeil in, who I know a lot of people weren't a very big fan of. I was a very big fan of Dwight McNeil. I think it's a brilliant signing. I think he's a really talented young player with a massive, massive future ahead of him. Onana will be a great signing. I think in the future, Idrissa Gana Gueye will be brilliant to come in and be there for the now. And I think that's what we've tried to do this summer. I think what Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell have sort of addressed is that, okay, we need to bring players in for the future. Okay, we need to bring players in that ultimately are here in 4, 5, 6 years' time, or we can make a profit on in 4, 5, 6 years' time, because that's ultimately how football works. But we also need players that are going to come in and make an instant impact. You see James Tarkowski, who in 4 or 5 years, Everton aren't going to sell for a ridiculous amount of money. We may make a bit of profit on him because he's cost us nothing. Same with Idrissa Gana Gueye. We're not going to sell these players for a ridiculous amount of money because A, their age, and B, the fact that they'll probably be coming towards the end of their career in those times. However, the manager and the director of football has addressed that we need these players because we need them for the now. It's all well and good going out and buying an Onana, who's a 20-year-old, very raw, very fresh central midfielder who has got the potential in a couple of years to be absolutely wonderful. Same with Dwight McNeil. But for the position, considering the position that we were in towards the back end of last season, we really need players that are going to come in and instantly improve us. And I think that's why I'm so pleased. And again, I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't believe that any transfer is done until the player is stood at Finch Farm with the shirt in their hands and we can all sit here and go, get the bar, get a Jaeger in, they're an Everton player. But I think the decision to bring in Onana alongside Idrissa Gana Gueye is, dare I say, extremely smart and almost seems like somebody at the football club knows what they're doing, because what that is doing is bringing in Idrissa Gana Gueye for the now, because we need a midfielder instantly to step in that we know is going to be able to do a good enough job next season to improve that midfield massively and ensure that we're not in the position we were in last season. But also we then need somebody that for the next 2 or 3 years can work with Idrissa Gana Gueye, learn from him, and then ultimately when Idrissa Gana Gueye comes to move on, step into that position and just comfortably make that transition as comfortable as possible instead of having to go out and buy a replacement for Ghana. So as I said, I think there's been a nice blend of bringing people in for the future, players in for the future, and also bringing players in that are going to instantly improve the team now and, make us a lot more solid, make us a lot better. I think that's also what the sort of view is with Conor Cody, if we manage to get that one over the line. Yes, he mightn't be here in 4 or 5 years' time, but one thing he does do, in my opinion, is improves Everton now and makes us a significant amount better. So, transfer business-wise, obviously, going into the season without Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a ridiculous blow. I mean, have you ever heard another Premier League team to have their top goal scorer? In fact, let's be honest, only goal scorer. And, one of our best players out injured for 6 weeks before a ball has even been kicked. And not even injured for 6 weeks before the ball has even been kicked, injured in a training session. It wasn't even like he was injured in a pre-season game or, he was injured in a training session. So our injury luck has pretty much just resumed from where it left off last season and the season before and the season before that and the season before that, in the sense that, well, we haven't got any injury luck, have we? It's all bad luck. And losing Dominic Calvert-Lewin ahead of tomorrow's game is devastating, especially considering we've got nobody to really come in and naturally replace him. Okay, we've got Dele Alli that I'm sure will start tomorrow, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how Dele does, because I think Dele has played his best football in that sort of false nine striker position whilst he's been at Everton, but it's not ideal. Rondon obviously isn't available, but even when Rondon is available, he's not ideal because he's not very good. So there is a little bit of worry, I think, there as to, and rightly so, by the way, as to who scores the goals, because you're looking at 6 weeks for Dom out injured. Then you've got 2 or 3 weeks whilst he gets his fitness up and obviously his match fitness up, and then you're relying on him hitting the ground running as soon as he returns from injury. He might have then another 2-3 week period where he's not quite settling into Premier League games and he's got to get that first goal to get him back. By then we might be talking November time, coming up to the break for the World Cup, before Dominic Calvert-Lewin's even sort of managed to get himself into a little bit of a flow of form. And we can't go until then with Dele and Rondon as our only backup options. We simply can't. And that's why there's a massive necessity to sign a striker over the next coming days, coming weeks. We've just lost our most prolific goal scorer for the past 4 years in Richarlison, and our only other goal scorer is now picked up another injury that is going to keep him out for a significant amount of time. Okay, it's not as long as we expected, which is good, but it's still a significant amount of time. And that for me screams that we need to go out and bring somebody in, whether it's Armando Broja on loan. There's a couple of other players that have been mentioned. We need to go and get somebody that can score goals, because I think our top goal scorer last season, taken away from Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, I think our top goal scorer was Damari Gray on 5. And to put that into perspective, I think Michael Keane and Mason Holgate both scored 4 each. So we are in desperate need of a striker, and I understand the sort of, I suppose, the stress and anxiety that is floating around the fan base at the moment because of that need for a striker. And listen, none of us, maybe people did, but I certainly didn't expect Dominic Calvert-Lewin to pick up an injury that was going to keep him out for 6 weeks before the ball had even been kicked. So we absolutely know that's a necessity. We clearly know that the likes of Ellis Sims, Lewis Dobbin, these players, weren't ready, because otherwise the club wouldn't have sent them out on loan. I've seen a couple of people talk about Nathan Broadhead. Nathan Broadhead, to put it into perspective, is older than me. He will never, ever, ever be an Everton striker in the Premier League. He will never be an Everton striker in the Premier League. Townsend, I think, was up there for our top goal scorers as well. You're right, and he spent 3 months at the end of the season out injured, didn't he? So we need a striker, absolutely. I applaud the business that we've done so far, or seem to be doing. Again, I absolutely repeat myself in the sense that the Onana and Garner Gay deals have not been completed yet at the time of recording. But if they are completed, again, I would applaud the club for the business we've done so far, because I think it's been smart, which is not a word I've used in the same sentence as Everton's recruitment ever, I don't think. However, there is still work to be done. It certainly isn't over, and we certainly can't rest on what we've got at the moment, because we're in desperate need of a goal scorer, we're in desperate need of a striker. But again, it all ultimately feeds into what Everton's goals and aims and I suppose what Everton are looking to achieve for this season. And I know Frank Lampard has said that there isn't a specific goal or there isn't a specific aim, but there will be a roundabout position that Frank Lampard, I suppose, is sort of targeting Everton to be. I mean, okay, you might be saying we'll look at it game by game. You might be saying I don't want to think about positions wise, but he definitely won't be wanting to hover around the bottom end of the table again come the beginning of the year. So you look at our fixtures that we've got Chelsea obviously tomorrow, Aston Villa away next week, which again is a difficult game. A lot of Premier League fans, by the way, I mentioned this earlier on. I've just had Chinese, by the way, so if you're wondering why I keep taking a drink every 3 seconds, it's because I am incredibly thirsty because of the MSG in the food. I mentioned this in the last stream earlier on. I've been watching a couple of different football YouTubers doing their season previews, season predictions and stuff like that. And a lot of these football fans of various different clubs and across various different platforms seem to believe that Aston Villa will be the team that are the best of the rest this season, the team that break the mould, the team that have a wonderful, wonderful season. And look, they may well do that. I personally don't think that will happen. Steven Gerrard lost more games. Frank Lampard won more games than Steven Gerrard won last season, and Frank Lampard is being touted as the first manager to get sacked by a lot of Premier League football fans. So I just can't see Aston Villa having the season that some people seem to think they will have, and that's not a dig at Aston Villa in any sense of the imagination. I just can't see it myself. I just can't see it, and I do think that game next Saturday is very, very, very winnable, and also it's an opportunity for Everton to kickstart our away sort of form and record this season. We can't afford to have another season where we only win 2 away games and get 4 draws, 5 draws, whatever we got away from home. You compare that to the previous season, we won 9 away games, I believe. Now, okay, our home form was absolutely abysmal, but 2 away games in a season is relegation form. We can't afford to be there, and I think the game against Aston Villa is a perfect opportunity to start off positively. Then we've got Nottingham Forest at home, which again you would expect 3 points in. Brentford away, again another opportunity to get an away win. Leeds away, similar, and then you've got the Merseyside derby at home before travelling to the Emirates away, which again 2 really, really difficult games. But you're looking at Everton could go into September there and get through the first month of the season, first 4 games of the season, without losing one. And I'm not saying that will happen, and I'm not saying that that's realistic, but what I'm saying is there's games there that are winnable. And now obviously tomorrow's will be extremely difficult because it's against a very good Chelsea team, but there's a lot of winnable games there. There's a lot of points to be picked up, and ultimately Everton have got to pick up as many points as possible early on in the season to build that confidence and to build that I suppose that momentum for ultimately going into what will be the winter break for the World Cup with as much momentum as possible. What we don't want to be is sat here in or around the relegation zone in that World Cup break with an owner who has been known to be very, very, very sort of erratic with his decisions, watching where we are and looking at where we are. We want to be comfortable, we want to be secure, we want to be in a position where we go, actually, do you know what, we're doing all right here. And I think that would be the first sort of almost checkpoint, if you like, for Frank Lampard to sort of address. I know he says we're going to take it game by game, but I think really in his mind he'll be thinking, well, let's get to that World Cup break and then we'll address where we are. We'll see where we are. We'll see how certain players are doing. And, obviously we'll go from there. But ultimately, we need a striker before... Obviously, it won't be before tomorrow, but we need a striker over the coming days and weeks. And I think we need to hope that Idrissa Gana Gueye can do the job that he was doing before he left the football club, and hope that James Tarkowski can continue his form. Dwight McNeil can carry his form over from that pre-season game into the Premier League, and ultimately hope for a better season. And that's the hope every year, isn't it? That's the hope every year, is that you progress. And football is a very simple sport, as with any sport. Progression simply means achieving more in the following season than you did the previous season. Now, progression and success is measured in various different outcomes, and somebody, Manchester City success is obviously measured in much different to what Everton's success is measured in. And I'm not by any sense of the imagination sitting here saying if we finish mid-table next season we should sit here and have a party and get the champagne out, because as I said, it's not where we should be as a football club, certainly given the amount of money we've spent over the last 5-6 years. However, a mid-table finish would be significantly improving on where we were last season. So it's tough going into this one, because I think we're going into it on the basis of could we be in and around where we were last season again? I don't think we will, personally. I think we'll have a much better season. I think last season was an anomaly, and I think we've made significant improvements to the team since then, albeit we're losing our top goal scorer and ultimately our best player. But it will be interesting. It certainly will be interesting. I would have liked another week off, to be honest with you. I would have liked another week's rest. I would have liked another maybe 10 days to sort of ease us into the Premier League season. But it's here. It's back. And I'd be lying to you if I was to say I wasn't massively looking forward to being back at Goodison Park tomorrow. Being stood outside that ground hours before the game, greeting the coach, cheering on the team, singing Everton songs, all of that sort of stuff. I absolutely cannot wait for. And yeah, whatever happens this season, we'll wait and see. Again, I think maybe it might work in our favour that there is no expectation. It might work in our favour that the expectation from the fans isn't that we should be breaking into that top 6, or we should be challenging for those European positions, or this, that and the other. I feel like if you were to ask any Evertonian what you expect this season, I think most of them would say just to be relatively comfortable, to stay up, to not be in a relegation battle, to be comfortable, and probably to win more away games. I think would be the key things people would say. I don't think to finish in a European place would be on many Evertonians' lips, because of where we've just been and how poorly our squad looked at many a times last season. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. As I said, it's very unique going into a season and not expecting to challenge for those positions, but maybe not having that expectation will work in our favour. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. Anyway, let's get into some of the live comments. If you are enjoying the scene, by the way, please hit that like button. It does only take a second if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Wonderlust says, hey there, Cam, what's happening? Onana says, Peter says, thought you'd fell asleep, Cam. No, mate, I said I'll be back after the Arsenal game, and as soon as the Arsenal game finished, I'm back. I had a little bit of a break to go and get a drink because, as I said, my throat is absolutely dry as anything. But we're back, mate. Arsenal suck hard, says Wonderlust. Yes. Onana, Ghana gay, says Louis. Also says Arsenal look serious there. They looked good. They looked good. They did it. Jacob says only 13 people watching. Feel bad for you, mate. Deserve way more. Well, there's 90 people watching now. So to be fair, the stream had only just started there. So I'll let people off. We weren't the only ones with a shaky summer. Says Wonderlust. Says correct. One game at a time. Absolutely. Gareth says Connor Cody would be a great loan signing for us. Allows us to play a 2 or a 3 at the back. Absolutely. 11th to 14th is my realistic expectation, says Wonderlust. Interesting. I say 10th or 11th, says Nicholas. Steven says I think we can challenge for Europe if we keep players fit. Apart from the top 2, the league is not very good. I would actually agree with that. To be honest with you, I would actually agree with that. How are we, Cam? Best transfer window in the club's history, maybe? I wouldn't go that far. Partly because it's not over yet. And secondly, because, I don't think we can go that far. But it's been if it ends with Onana, Garner, Cody, and a striker, if Brozier, then I think it would be a very good transfer window. But we're still a distance away from that being the case. Ped says Sui. Nicholas says Onana could play the Chelsea game if he was registered before 12 p.m. today. Now, by the way, just because he hasn't been announced yet doesn't mean he wasn't registered before 12 o'clock today. However, if you were to ask me to bet, I would bet that he wasn't registered before 12 o'clock today and he won't be playing tomorrow. But a lot of reports are suggesting he will be at Goodison Park tomorrow to obviously watch the game, so that'll be interesting. Wonderlust says, think the summer might be magic after all. The summer is magic. Gareth says, prediction for tomorrow, he's going 0-0. Prediction for the season, finish 7th. Yeah, I'm an optimistic prick right now. Ask me again in 4 weeks. Liam says, still need more goals in the team. Desperate for a couple of more strikers. And Wonderlust says, the goals Frank has in mind right now are the ones you score. Yeah, and that is absolutely what he should be. Apparently, Onana is being pictured at the airport, which is interesting. I would assume it's Manchester Airport, considering the reports were suggesting that he'd fly into Manchester this evening. If it's another airport, then what's going on there then? But yeah, as I said, it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to sit here and predict where Everton will finish. As I said, I would if I had to predict, I would say somewhere between 10th and 15th, probably. I don't think we'll break into that top 10 because I just don't think we could, and I don't think we'll be fighting relegation. I just think we'll be comfortable this season, because I think we probably need a season of just pure stability, pure comfortability, if that's even a word. And then you address next summer what we need to take that further step forward and take it one step at a time rather than trying to jump up a flight of stairs. Walk before you can run, whereas Everton are trying to run without being able to crawl, never mind without being able to walk. So yeah, it certainly is interesting. I think the fact that not many of us have got any sort of expectation for this season will be an interesting and telling factor on how that is fed into the team and the performances ultimately. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. It kickstarts tomorrow. Everton, of course, playing Chelsea in the opening game of the season before having, I think, 3 or 4 winnable fixtures. Certainly fixtures where we can pick up points in. Okay, maybe we're not expected to win all of them, but certainly I expect Everton to pick up points in all of those games post tomorrow's game, and I still think Everton will pick up points tomorrow as well. As for the rest of the season, I think it's a case of as Frank Lampard said, take it game by game. It'll be interesting to sort of revisit this video when the transfer window's over and we know fully what our squad will be for the foreseeable future. But as of now, it's difficult because, you know, we haven't got a striker as of now, so I could sit here and say there's no goals in this team. I'm worried about this season, but in a week's time, we might have brought a striker in, and that might be completely irrelevant. So, one thing I will say is if you can get to Goodison Park early tomorrow to get involved in the coach greeting and the welcoming of the coach and all of that sort of stuff, the atmosphere before the game, then please do so, because that helps in us, you know, getting an atmosphere created and ultimately going into games like this with a much better chance of winning it than we would if it wasn't the case. And yeah, all as we can do is get behind the manager, get behind the players, get behind the club, and see what happens this season. I think it's just a case of it's going to be very, 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 very interesting to see what happens. Wayne says no one's winning the cups outside the top 6. Interesting. The FC Graphics says we're winning the lot. Basic says happy with a season where my blood pressure doesn't suffer. I don't think we can ask for that much, mate. Reckon the third kid is nice, says Louis. Interesting. Onana top signing. Can't wait to see Guy and him in the midfield. Looking bright if we get Brozier as well, or Dennis. I'll be flabbergasted. And Max says Everton will beat Chelsea and lose to Aston Villa. Let's hope not, mate. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there then. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. We will be back tomorrow with the instant match reaction and the player ratings, of course, after our Premier League opener against Chelsea. However, I've got a slight feeling that we'll be back before then with an announcement video. And that's not me knowing anything that nobody else knows. That's just me having a feeling that tomorrow will be the day when we announce at least one new Everton player, maybe 2, but at least 1. And if we do, of course, whoever it may be, we'll be live, doing a live stream on that as well. So don't forget to join us. If you are new to the channel and you're wondering how you can join us for all of these live streams, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell, and you'll be kept up to date with all of the latest Everton news, information, all of that sort of stuff. And it will also help us get to 7,000 subscribers, which we're close to as well. Massive thank you to everybody in the live comments. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, please do hit the like button and leave your comments down below. That would mean a massive amount to me. But all as I can say is let's look forward to tomorrow's game. Let's hope we can kickstart the season with a win. And yeah, up the fucking Toffees. Come on. Nice one for watching, and we'll see you later.